Okay, so, I'm gonna turn this on. I'm recording. Okay, that is angled too low. I had to use my camera for something else. This is my shirt. So today I wanted to mess with combining multiple images into one final image, not dissimilar from this, but where this is a printout of a scan of this sort of concept before. Hello, Seth. Thanks for following. So I'll show this up close a little bit so you can get a better understanding. So this one is 4 copies of the same image cut up one direction, and then, well, you take 2 and then put them and stretch it out, and then you cut it the perpendicular direction and then stretch it out this way, and what you end up with is 4 copies of things approximately in the same location. This was all using the same photograph, this one. And what I want to try today, I thought about doing this because I recently purchased a collection of a lot of images. Like, a lot is the term that's used in angle this slightly this direction. I'm resetting some things up, and this guy should be turned on. I got a collection of photographs on eBay that you can buy, just collections that people are putting up for sale for whatever purpose you want to use them. But I don't have the rights to those images, and I feel weird using them if I'm going to create a shirt design or something like that. If it's purely exploration or artistic sort of things and posting without that sort of format, then I'm more okay with it. But not my favorite sort of thing to do if it's promotional or for any sort of monetary value. But I got this collection of photographs, like approximately 60 of them, and I have these images, but I realized that these images span a decent amount of time, because you can tell that a number of these photographs are of the same people, and so like this one was younger and then a bit older, and then, or maybe, I don't know, but seeing this collection of images of people that I don't know, but seeing the evolution of someone through portraiture, I was curious about using my own photographs, my own portraits from when I was younger and more recently, and seeing how it would work to combine those images together in a similar way to this one. Most likely I won't be doing it quite as small as these are, because I have a suspicion that because my face shape has changed and these photographs were taken in different conditions, meaning different lens lengths and proximity, or focal lengths and proximity to the camera, so there's various degrees of distortion and disconnect and inconsistencies with the positioning face shape, because my face got longer as I grew older, but taking larger sections of it and combining it in a similar way. So first step is to cut these up. I have a total of 9 of the same image, or the same 9 heads, because I'm taking 3 images, and to combine those into a larger squared version of this, I'll end up going 3 times. I'll have to recreate this sort of elongated or wide version 3 times, and then I'll have to cut that a second time. This is going to take a little bit of time and some tape, and that's also a reason why I'm leaning towards not using as thin of strips. So let's see, how wide is this? If this is 3 times, that's 4, that's 12. I can do 12. I can cut 12 wide. So first things first, I'm going to mark these up. I'm going to actually go cutting this direction first. And in order to do that, I need to figure out how many slices I'd like to do. Let's say this is just about 4 inches. I don't know, every ½ inch might be the best for this. Thank you, Amelie Ave. So what I will do is I'm going to mark these every ½ inch, going from the leftmost side and then start that process over again over here. So every ½ inch, just because these photographs are a little bit smaller and more varied in how things will and won't line up because it's not coming from the same exact photograph. I'll have, I believe, better luck if I treat this as a little bit larger swaths, and I'll end up with fewer pieces that I have to handle, which is also advantageous. Is that marking at all? So this will ultimately be a still. This isn't going to be an animated piece. That's there. And again, because these are going to be slightly different, or these are perpendicular in orientation, that was just a means of fitting more images on each page. So I could conceivably cut more at once, but didn't quite work out that way. And so there we go, got those marks up. Now I'm going to line up this sheet of 3 and cut on this center line to separate these. Hello, Mark. I have purchased various things to try and expedite this process, but so far the most accurate tool is just a straight edge and a blade. So I'm going to, I should have moderate success with just using the pressure to hold these pages together, since it's only 3 pages that aren't particularly hefty in weight. Mark this down again and use a little bit more. I'm also leaving these connected at the top because I have found that it is much easier to maintain order with these things if I treat it almost like those things where you have flyers that have phone numbers at the bottom and you take one, so you rip it so it stays connected until you don't need it to be connected anymore. I generally aligned these in Photoshop before printing them. So I scanned these photos from, I'm not sure how old I am in the left photo, the youngest photo, but I am a freshman in high school on this right image. I don't have too many sort of easily found, generally neutral expression photographs of myself when I was younger that I was able to find in the time that I had between conceiving of this and now executing it. But this would ideally be a selection of more similarly positioned and similar expressions. But as it is, it should be interesting. I'll see how it ultimately goes. Okay, so I've done those, and now I will do it with this selection as well. For the sake of, or not yet. I was gonna say for the sake of consistency, I can cut that down, but I'll be cutting off the marks that I've made. A little bit different behavior. I need to hold this. This time I'm not cutting from a connected piece. I'm cutting into things. Going a little bit softer with the pressure. This might work, this might not work. But it's my experiment for today. I also just recently took these similar designs out of my web store, and so I was like, now is the time I can update with similar cut up imagery. And I had gotten those photos delivered, but ultimately I feel weird anytime that I use found images for anything. And it's more exaggerated if I'm creating designs that I then resell. Different sort of thoughts can come about with that sort of thing. We'll go ahead and cut this off this end. So now I get to decide what order I want to put these photographs in. I think it might be best to go just chronologically. So go youngest to oldest. What I'll do now is put some tape down, just some masking tape. I need about 12 inches. And I'll put this face up and tape it down. And that will provide me a work surface that I can just place these down against and adjust it so it's more on this line. Okay, so easiest way to do this is just go in order and rip these off of this guy. I'm gonna get rid of that for my own sense of being, and we're just gonna go in order and see how this behaves and whether or not I should be able to sort of tell at the start whether or not this seems like it's working. too large or too small of cuts. Most of the visual information will sort of make itself present just as things progress. Now we're getting into a little bit more representational, or not representational, but easier to identify areas, because we're starting to have eyes popping up. Be interesting to see if I could find photographs from like every years or something. These are spaced out. I think from the first photograph, I'm probably like 5 years old, and then I'm closer to like 15 in the second one, and then late 20s in this third one. Hello, Maria. I'm not sure what your name is. Oop, I skipped one. Distracted. Might be something that would work better with a little bit more consistency between the images, but I'm gonna keep it going, which means that I get to redo this exact section a few times. This, just give myself a little bit of extra space at the tail end. This might be terrible thing to scan because I'm gonna have to do it in pieces. But next steps, let's tape this back down. Just wait until you see that this is step 1 of like 9. This is not as detailed as, or as chaotic as some other ones that I've worked on. Goodbye this tape. New tape to come. Ultimately probably look better with that higher contrast that eventually will come. So there's one. Should I alternate the order of things? I might do that. I'll see what that looks like. Stick side up. And so I guess I will do that. So this first one started with the oldest. This next one, I'll start with the middle one. Where last time it went ABC, now we'll go BCA. See how that affects the look of things. I'll be doing this for a little bit. This is me at different ages. I was interested in trying to combine photographs because I bought a collection of family photos on eBay. Not a crazy number, but a few. And I started seeing that there were portraits from different time periods of this same person's life. And maybe it's a bit selfish, but I also don't like creating work without permission, explicit permission of the people involved, and then profiting off of the images of people that I don't know feels weird as well. And so I'm instead combining images of myself from different points in time and seeing how it goes. And the first time I used the one of myself when I was youngest first. And this time I'm going for the middle one and seeing how things do or don't line up with this semi-automated process. And where the first time I'd used all the same photograph, this is using a collection, and I'm curious how it will affect the final visual, whether or not it'll be cohesive or if it'll just be purely chaotic. And because I didn't do maybe as much preparation with this as I at least could have in regards to getting a more consistent contrast and exposure. Because the photograph I took more recently has a better sense of contrast and such for simplifying a complex image. Let's get some line in it. That's okay. Part of this process. Oh yeah, these last ones are a little bit thinner. I was like, why are these not getting the full half-inch width? And then I realized, simply put, they just don't have it. They're thinner. And then this on this tail end, to give it a little bit of length so I can have a section to cut into without cutting through. Clean up these. And we'll tape down the back. There we go. Bunch of this masking tape because in my mind I thought I was going to be doing a lot more of these, but I'll use masking tape as time goes on. I'll always find a use for supplies. I'll rub down and trim this edge. And have some tea. So what's happening is it's slightly different alternation here. I think you'll pick up on some of the form. You get some nose here, but it's not as clear as when I was doing it with the same image. I think part of that's just the consistent contrast. I worked a little bit more with this image to get it printing better for this sort of format. But got 2 down, 1 to go. Line this up generally. Come in with some tape. Going towards 14. And now we will start with most recent image. And then youngest. finger's probably got a bit of toner on it. Really? Okay. Election isn't done yet. Things are looking towards Biden now as more votes have come in. All the mail-in ballots and such. But Trump has been aggressive in denying anything that's not in his favor, because that's who he is as a person. He can't accept anything that's not constant praise. But as additional votes have come in specifically Philadelphia, but Pennsylvania and Georgia, the votes have now shifted to, or those states have now gone to, or haven't gone to because it's not a full count, and it'll be contested for a bit of time. But Biden is in the lead as more. There's no knowing whether or not there might be a general consensus by the establishment, but there's a large amount of distrust that's fueled by statements by Trump and not founded in any evidence. It's just him floundering as he does with baseless claims and no evidence. No, there's no last day. Technically, there's some different things that are in place. So America has a pretty dumb system for presidential elections, where it's not determined by who has the most votes. It's determined by a system called the Electoral College, where each state has a determined number of electoral votes based on population, but there's a minimum number that every state has. So there are 50 states, and depending on population size, they have a different number of electoral votes, the largest being California, I believe. And then other large electoral electoral vote states are Texas, New York, Illinois is moderately sized. But the different states have a little bit of different systems in place where, depending on how many, some places have it where it's based in smaller quantities as to whether or not the electoral votes are split among candidates. But typically, what it is if you win the state, you win all the votes, which means that you don't have to win the popular vote in order to win the election. Because you can win a state that has like 20 votes by technically one vote. And we are getting very close in Pennsylvania. I think is the closest, or maybe I think Georgia is actually closer. And so then you have people arguing. It's a chaotic time, but hopefully it won't be the longest time that I've had to wait for an election to be called in my lifetime, because in 2000, when it was Bush versus Gore, it took just about a month. I'm going to leave that top edge. It took 29 days before the election was called because of terrible voting system in Florida, where he doesn't really have a chance, but he's going to contest it until he's forcibly removed, is the impression that I get. And he has been saying that it would be a fraudulent election for a long while because of mail-in ballots. And so that's why he early on declared that he was winning, or a winner, because he encouraged his base to vote in person, which those votes are calculated and counted earlier. The actual timeline for when mail-in ballots are counted varies depending on state. There's some legal efforts made to not start that counting process before election night, which means that you can have many votes that you would have been able to process and speed up the election, but it wasn't happening. There's also states where so long as your mail-in ballot is postmarked, so if it has notification by the mail that it was in the mail by election day, if it arrives within a certain time period, then it counts. So there are some states that technically there could be outstanding mail-in ballots that don't arrive until November 10th is I think the latest that any state has. Currently in Philadelphia, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, they are counting through votes, and there are some efforts by primarily Trump supporters that are making an effort to, in states where he is currently losing as a result of the calculation of the mail-in ballots, the counting of those. He's lost his lead in both Pennsylvania and in Georgia, but he's gained a little bit in Arizona. So there's contradicting efforts by his supporters in those states. It's not as present in Georgia from what I've seen, but in Michigan there was a lot of people protesting outside of election offices in Detroit. Detroit is a larger city, and so historically larger cities tend to vote with a more left-leaning party, which throughout history there's been sort of a flip in what Democratic and Republican candidates support most. But cities with higher populations tend to vote for the more left-leaning candidate, and so there were Trump supporters in Detroit that were protesting outside of the election offices where ballots were being counted, saying to stop the vote and claiming that the entire process is fraudulent. While in Arizona, there were Trump supporters that were calling for the counting of every vote. Count all the votes. And now in Georgia, because it's such a thin margin between Trump and Biden, and it's a state that has a larger number of electoral votes. There's calls from Trump to make sure that the military mail-in ballots are counted. Because there tends to be, it's a mix. After Trump said some more inflammatory remarks regarding military service members, his support among the military has gone down a degree. But he's floundering a bit. Also, he was not present in any sort of live broadcast for almost 2 days, which is surprising for someone who thrives on public accolades and attention. He's mounting legal efforts, which is historically something that Trump has done in his personal, professional, and political life, where he threatens to sue quite often, and then bury people in the legal system in different ways, shapes, and form. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan of his. From when he gained popularity in my lifetime, which was for the TV show The Apprentice, where he had a number of failed businesses, but has consistently projected that he's a successful person. And The Apprentice put that on a national stage. The idea that he's this rich person who is a smart businessman and has all of these positive things going for him. I just realized that I will need to cut this down on this edge. At least for 2 of them. He's a very chaotic person, and he thrives in chaotic situations because he just is lying constantly. And it's hard to refute someone who never admits fault and constantly just throws out statements that are emotionally charged and then doesn't adhere to whatever the thing is. When he was running in 2016, I remember reading transcripts of interviews with him, and he doesn't commit to anything. He just says a lot of inflammatory, emotionally charged things, and then people who want to hear something in that language will hear it and connect to this idea that there's someone successful who's fighting for them. It's also, my understanding is it's aspirational. It's people who want his projected image. But I'm not a fan of him or people who tend to support him. I've yet to find out that someone is a supporter of him and be surprised. It's typically people who have a certain air about them that isn't usually the sort of person that I enjoy their company. So now let's get to this part of it. How tall are these? These are like 5.5, so I need 15, 16.5. This will be a little bit tight, probably. Everyone's entitled to their opinions on things. Man, what did I do? Not long enough. I'll have a better time at this if I just make it. But I'm not a fan of Trump or really any of his associates. But he's someone who claims that whatever system isn't for him is rigged, which is not a way to grow as a person. My general understanding of his life and how he came to be how he is that he was never what exactly his father wanted. His father built a real estate empire in New York, and Trump took over elements of that and wanted to prove himself and sort of failed at every turn, and so he just lied consistently to gain that sort of attention. Hello, Reno. Someone was asking about the election, and I was talking through some of my opinions. So what order do I want to do this? Just go how it's physically going. Fun election time. Hot topic. I don't like him as a politician. He's successful in creating people who are very into the idea of him, but I think my understanding is that it's people who project their own desires of success. Thanks for watching, Avi. There's a documentary I watched leading up to the 2016 election that was discussing the parallels between Donald Trump's campaign and that of the Alabaman, maybe Arkansas, governor from when segregation was being enforced in the South, George Wallace. And there's a quote towards the start of it that's from, I forget the name of the author or the writer, but there's a writer towards the start of it who talked about some of his experience being a poor kid attending rallies for George Wallace. And he has George Wallace's primary platform was prevent integration, preserve segregation, and focusing in on that emotionally charged rhetoric, founded a campaign and eventually tried to run for president. He got shot, and that sort of stopped him from doing that. But the crux of his campaign was no integration. And so he had campaigns where it was very inflammatory language, it's emotionally driven, and just talking about the fight that you have between you and the federal government, stuff like that. Anyway, there's a quote from someone who, when he was younger and attending a rally, he's just reading from some writing, and he said that we went to see a rally for the governor, and the governor kept telling us, it's a white dude, that the governor kept telling us that we were better than the Negro. I was not aware that we were better than anyone. And so there's a lot that sort of identity politics of finding meaning in your life by putting down other people that is very present in much of Donald Trump's campaigns. That it's not your fault, that there's an enemy that you must fight, and they are worse than you. And in the case of George Wallace, it was exclusively based on race. But Donald Trump has a mix, but there's an enemy and he's out to get you. And the only way that you'll survive is if you pay me money and I protect you. That's at least what the campaign emails that I have received. I signed up for both parties' campaign emails, and his are chaotic and call you his friend consistently, and saying that the president he missed seeing your name on the donor list and he personally wanted to invite you. There's a lot of bits like that. There's also a lot of weird sales tactics where, like, if you donate, then you can join the Double Diamond Club and be a part of these weird sales things, or you can get a golden $1,000 bill that has his face on it. And the radical left is out to get you. And I have a bit more radical left-leaning views typically, and Joe Biden is not that. Joe Biden is not like a hard-leaning socialist, chaotic person. He's a career politician who has been somewhat moderate for most of his career. It's just weird to see it be like, this is more chaotic elements of things. Did I do this right? I think I might have done this one prematurely. And I have some people that are friends or family that are Trump supporters, but it tends to be baseless claims or easily refutable information, but it's emotionally charged and reactionary, and that exists for any political campaign, but it's a bit more exaggerated when it comes to the speed and ferocity with which the internet can create and spread disinformation. With no oversight, and there's a number of folks who claim it as freedom of speech and stifling freedom of speech, but it's just falsehoods. Intentionally inflammatory falsehoods. So that's my talking on things. I can move to talk about other things. This is super chaotic looking. I wonder what this will look like with higher contrast on it, but this is not quite as smooth as I thought it might be, but I also didn't think that it would be so smooth. There's some interesting elements. This looks like it's compiled from a larger number of photographs than what it actually is, because it's a little bit more offset. But I like seeing these mouths right in here. I'm gonna I'm gonna have to cut this up into quarters, I think, in order to scan it, which isn't fun, but to fit on the scanner bed, that's what I gotta do. But I'll be able to increase the contrast and give a better final result based on that. So let me make sure this is nice and flat. You could, yeah, this has some sort of cryptography sort of thing, or the idea of decoding something that has been put within a pattern and then rearranged. And I have interest in how that sort of functions in different spaces. In a digital space, there's something of like constant cryptography if you are going about the idea that things are being decoded constantly. Like even what you're watching. You have thousands upon thousands upon millions. Upon millions of bits of information that you are experiencing that is being recontextualized to an algorithm should be able to reconstruct this. Depends on how consistent I was with the placement, because I might have been a little bit off at times, but yeah, because ultimately what's happened is there's 9 images. I'm going to try and draw this out. I'm just going to do this in like, it's 9 images, but I'm just going to treat this as if it was 2 when I was doing a similar thing. So let's say that one's red and one's black. And I'd have to have 4 of these. It's just easier to visualize if I have something that's like 4, or something that contrasts. And so conceptually, what's happened is this has been cut, 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 and then it's rearranged, alternating. So it would be like red, black, red, black. Oop, that's one too many. Red, black, red, black. And then you come through and you cut it again and rearrange it that way. So what you end up with is, that's not the best way to explain it, but like do 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 do. It's creating a pattern based on it, and some elements match up at times and don't at others. This would be a better illustration if I had another color present. Well, there's a lot of information and visuals that are very close. There's so much fragility in algorithms that reconstruct images that's one thing that's really interesting to me about glitch stuff, is that it shows how fragile the digital space can be and how much of that information is nonsensical unless it's going through a very specific decoding sort of thing, because the information is pretty chaotic to the human understanding of it. I got a better sense of that when I started doing glitch things, and like the easiest glitching sort of stuff is something that people are often introduced to glitch work doing, is using a text editing program and opening up a file like a JPEG or something. An image file is usually the easiest and relatively small compared to like a video file or a glossy a lossless image file. And lossy things tend to work a little bit better that have more compression because there's more decoding sort of happening in the process. So you can see more of that like grid pattern starting. These sort of offset in a direction. So let's get closer in here and let you see some more of that sort of texture and how things are lining up. So you can, if you're looking at it and looking for, sorry, I'm all over the place. You can open up an image file as a text file in like a basic into a text file, and if you read that, then it's the same file, it's just a different conversion, and you can edit that text and see how that affects the image. And if it's a more compressed image, there's more conversion happening and there's more specific elements that are taking place, because when you have most images and video that you look at, it's not a one-for-one. What you're seeing is something that's reconstructing in a way that requires less information, ideally. So when you look at a JPEG, what you're seeing is a computer reinterpreting information that has, it's not like pixel 1 is this value of RGB, pixel 2 is this value of RGB, because that makes for millions and millions of bits of information. What you have is like generalizations a lot of the time. So it'll be like, this area is kind of blue and it transitions there. That's maybe easiest for my understanding when I started doing data moshing, which is where you take video files that are compressed and you take advantage of the way that it's stored, because video files aren't stored as compressed ones. They have keyframes and they have tween frames. So every now and again, you think in your mind that a video file is simply a series of images in succession, but much of the time what it is like an image every second or so, or maybe a longer time period, depends on what compression and what video you're viewing. But what you have is an image, and then what it records is the shifting motion of the pixels in that image, which means you can take advantage of that to recontextualize that file and sort of better understand what is happening in that conversion of information to a visual. And you can treat it in that situation of using compressed video and taking advantage of the keyframes and the tweening frames. You can take that thing where it's an image and then it's recording where things move. But if you replace what the movement is or repeat that movement over and over again, you can abstract the imagery. Like if you have something where in frame 1 it's here, and then frame 2 it's here, and you repeat that change over and over again, what you end up having is like this melding of all these pixels repeating their movement and sort of dissolving the image. And that's why sometimes when you have a bad file, or you have something where it's like a bad signal for a broadcast, you'll have things where you have like an image and then there's like a bright green section on someone's face and it tracks with them because there's some information that's missing, that keyframe or the information of that still that it's referencing the motion against. It's missing. So it tracks with the information that it has, and it has this movement information, but it doesn't have the initial image information. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, here you can see the shifting of things. So what I did was I had this first image. So like if you look right here, you can see these three eyes in succession. This is the one when I was youngest, and then in high school, and then most recently. And then the second one I started with the middle age one. And I think I actually ended up shifting these in different sections, and that's what I meant by like not knowing what order I did stuff exactly. But I changed the order like 1, 2, 3 to 2, 3, 1, or this is actually 3, 1, 2, and 2, 3, 1. And so 3 is first here, then here, then here, and it gets offset, and you can start to see some patterns following in lines in some spots and not in others. And that's like if you are breaking or trying to find an algorithm to rearrange this, you would have to shift these sections and take these partial images and reconstruct them. Hopefully that makes some general sense, but this does have an algorithmic quality to it, just in a physical space. Thank you. Zangie, or Xangie. X? Oh, I haven't done that in so long. When I was younger, I definitely had instances where I had screen names that were lowercase x, uppercase X, then the name, and then going back to it. I wonder. Primarily for AIM. For AIM, I don't know how much there's an awareness of America Online or AOL Instant Messenger for an audience of this age. Let's see. This might be okay, this is 12. If I cut it this way and then about halfway here, I don't know if you saw Reno. I don't know if you saw this piece, but this one's a little bit, this is all based off of one image, and this one has a different sort of effect to it because it's more like it's offset, because it doesn't have those clear distinctions of the separate images. So this one looks almost like a mosaic, or if you're looking through crystal or something that has some of that texture, whereas this one has clearly distinct elements that come and go in different sections. But I am going to cut this so I can scan it and then increase the contrast and help a bit with, should be able to just generally follow. Do a great job there, so I'm gonna separate it in this direction. This one I was curious how much it would come through that it's different ages, and it's not super clear. I'm curious if I can cautiously cut this in a way that, how long is this? It's 12 and this is 8. I really like having that textured edge. I don't want to do this. Okay. Where's the general halfway mark? Right about yonder. To keep this offset, this will also end up taking a bit more time when it comes to the digital assembly, but I think it'll be worth it. Because that offset is part of the interest in the physicality of it. The imperfections of it all. What time is it? Okay. I got time. I'm doing another cooking with my sister, but this time it's like a loosely East Asian meal. That's kind of pad thai-ish. I could have moire patterns. I have to explore it a bit more. I do like moire patterns because it plays with that perception of space and things. Okay, that's right. I just don't have a particularly large flatbed scanner, and so I have to make them about 8.5 by 11. Ah, that's interesting as a thing. Playing with that relationship of scale. I might try that at some point. Also various ways to combine these sorts of images. This is just one that I've had some success with in the past. This is not perfect, but it will result in a more interesting texture. I believe. Okay. I don't have an easy way to click that link and save it out, but I can try to search for patterns and moire stuff. Okay. So if anyone wasn't here earlier, I can show a smaller version of what these 3 photos are. They're me at different ages. One I'm in preschool, I think, maybe kindergarten. I think it was 5, and then the other one freshman in high school, and then the most recent one was like a month ago or something. Okay, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Freaky dot patterns. Okay. I've messed with trying to draw moire patterns here before, and it works okay. There's a little bit more of that like magic moment when you have the physical item and you see it happening. We'll go 1200. And these are cut scans. I like moire patterns and how it sort of plays with perception. Moire patterns is something you have to be aware of in digital spaces as well. Every now and again it pops up in user interfaces in different ways. There was something not too long ago where if you have a pattern that sort of, I don't know if it will work in live or not. I'll try and draw it in a minute. I'll finish scanning and such first. But if you have a pattern that, wait, fudge, that was just an overview, that wasn't a scan. Gotta do this again, I got distracted. I'll make that what I want. Let's grab this and scan that guy. Okay, if you have a better working pen in here. I can't really get about it. That name sounds familiar. Is that Japanese physics dude who has like white hair and is like split to the side? Hello, Rosa. Oh wait, your name is pronounced differently. I forget. My bad. But hello. But in digital spaces, you have to be familiar with moire effects because of how information is displayed on a grid-based pixel display. Rosanna. But you say like a J or something. Okay. I first learned about moire patterns and issues with pixel-based displays when I learned about scaling images, and that you can scale an image at a quarter easily because you're just taking every fourth pixel, but you also get these weird recollections or just have, sorry, I'm distracted. Level 4, cool. Getting thrown into Photoshop. Okay, clear that up. We're going for 200 and 200. This guy and this guy. I'm all over the place a little bit. Rosanna. Darken. Oop, don't mean to do that. let me, I'm working and thinking and not doing everything super great as a result. Display capture, show you how this is going. So I compiled all of these together, and now I need to see how best I can or can't align these, because I have a sneaking suspicion that it's not going to be perfect. Oop. Let's jump that up after just selecting this sort of general bottom section. Okay. This can be white. The imperfections of the process can result in imperfect results. There's a chance that I've contributed work that ended up in some glitch artist collective sort of deal. I made a lot of data mosh GIFs in college, and a good selection of those ended up in Reddit's based on they call them broken GIFs, but I don't like that as a description because they aren't broken, because the GIFs are functioning as they should, but it's the source files that aren't functioning correctly, because the compression in those are not how animated GIFs are stored and compressed and such. So let's get this guy. This is like a very simple puzzle at this point, but the inconsistencies of physical media as it shifts and moves a bit makes for an imperfect compilation. Slightly off this direction. There's also spots like here where the color of the scanner bed affects the overlay. Let's darken this a bit. So that various edges pop off a little bit more. And then crop this down a little bit. Down a little more. Check that it's not cutting into anything up here. It is a little bit. Just angle that appropriately. I forget what I said and what those responses would be to in particular. Any weird edges? That's just tape. That's just paper. I made a mistake here and didn't extend that to the full length there. This is a pretty big file right now because I scanned this at 1200 DPI. which means that ultimately this is about 15,000 pixels wide. So when I do this, it might take a moment, and it might not do what I want it to do. Now I gotta flatten these. Command D. No, I don't want that actually. I want just these guys. There's a little sliver here, and I want to see if content aware fill will take care of it or not. But that takes some computations. I'm using Photoshop right this moment, but that's just to compile these. So I took these images slightly larger than those, and I cut them into a bunch of slices, and then I placed those images. So I took a slice from the first one. So first I cut them this direction, and I took a slice from here and placed it down, then the first slice from this one. Not in frame, am I? Took a slice from this one and put it down, then a slice from this one, put it down, this one, then I came back to the second slice in this first one, second slice in the second slice in the third, and did those in succession, created images that were about yay wide, and then I took those images, made 3 of them, did it 3 times, and then came back and cut them this direction and rearranged them similarly. First one from the first one from the second, first one from the third, second one from the first, second one from the second one from the third one from the first, and so on and so forth to create this more abstracted sort of image that you see here. I had to cut it down to make it size correctly to fit on my scanner. So I had to cut it into 4 pieces. And then I rearranged those in Photoshop. And that's where you get these guys. This final image. It has some elements. Let's mess with the curves a little bit. I might generally darken things. It's darken, but not as much. In the eye area. Let's leave it more or less what it is. And then I'll do some destructive editing. Burn tool. Not that strong. Let's get a lighter touch here. Just want to increase some of the darkness. I don't think it's too much. I think it's best just sort of as is. So change the size to be not nearly 15,000 but just 1080 so it'll fit on this phone display. And I can go in, cut, scan comp. I think it's just a JPEG. So it's an appropriate size. Turn off display capture. Pull in an image. Designs 6. That's the okay. And make this a bit smaller. So this looks almost completely abstracted. Which is interesting. Not exactly what I was hoping for ideally, but I do think it's an interesting sort of item. It's something that I think is there's a better experience if you are to see this as the like up close sort of thing. So I'm going to actually just crop this down to a more central area so you can see some of the details. I might. Give me 1 second. I'm actually going to just crop this a few times and then have it play back as a slideshow so you can see the multiple elements of it at slightly different scales. This is being a JPEG. Go one thing up. This should actually be, yeah, let's leave it as O2. See if it actually saved it that way or if it didn't replace it. Bear with me 1 second, I'm just scaling this differently. So you can get a better visual understanding of what it is. Let's just go full. Another JPEG. Give me like 1 minute maybe. And I should be in a good spot to I like these eyes. It's just a little bit larger. Need to resize this. 1080 JPEG. Go out 1 and 5. Okay. Thanks for being patient. Let's turn this guy off and get an image slideshow going. Fade, it'll be up for 4 seconds each, and fade is 400 milliseconds. Let's add some files. And here we go. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of a better understanding of what it looks like when you get a little bit more close and intimate with it. You also can see some of the dot patterns that exist. Yeah, you can see the face a bit better if you blur it. That's been in frame for a long time. Still is. There you go. That was angled more to the side. It's hard to communicate the different sort of relationship you can have with something that has that changing sense of scale when, or different degrees of intimacy with it. So yeah, if you have any questions, didn't mean to make that much noise. Feel free to ask. This one's a still. I have it mostly done already, prepped, and so I'll upload that to my web store in a moment. If you want to have this on some sort of t-shirt, you can have me at 3 different ages cut up into, I don't know how many pieces, but a lot of pieces, and rearranged and all that bit. Just for your general awareness, next week, for the weekdays at least, I won't be live streaming, and so I won't be doing that. So just be aware of that bit, but it doesn't mean that I'm stopping entirely. It just means that I'm busy this upcoming week. Thank you all for watching. I'll wait to see if there's any other questions, concerns, etc. And otherwise, I will plan on being back tomorrow. I'm gonna get candy. A little ambitious with how much candy I bought and how much I... Thank you. I'm guessing your name might be Chantal. Chantal. Maybe you just like chanting. But thank you all. If you have questions, concerns, or you want to ship any shirts that I have in my store or other things internationally, you can either direct message me within Instagram, or you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. There's not really, I'm inconsistent with how quickly I will respond to those. Or if you follow me on a different platform, you can message me there as well. Planning on being back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Standard Time. Anyway, and it'll probably be another still sort of thing of some kind and not an animation, because I have some obligations in the evening. So, again, thank you all for watching. If you want to watch this, thanks for following, and glad to be an inspiration to you. It's exciting to see people interact with work and learn things or experiment as a result of it. I might try to animate on Sunday. I'm not sure. It's just a different time commitment, and as things are right now, can't commit the abstract time that might be 5 hours come tomorrow or Sunday. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to see this in its full, or previous live streams in full without the chat element, that's on my YouTube, which you can find by just searching TraceLoops. Should pop up. And if you want to follow me on TikTok, same handle. The only place I don't have the handle is Twitter, because someone else has it and hasn't tweeted for like 5 years or something. Anyway, thank you all, and I'll be back tomorrow. Adios.